Welcome to the Grow Your Business and Grow Your Wealth podcast with Gary Heldt. Gary is an expert in helping business owners put together a plan that will provide a better future for their businesses, themselves, and their families. On the podcast, Gary interviews other professionals who share his vision, and together they share secrets and strategies any business owner can use to build a better financial foundation for your business and your life.
Hey, welcome back to the podcast. This week, my guest is Terry Blachek, and he is a managing director of Franvest Capital Partners and a veteran fitness and franchise executive with more than 35 years of experience scaling business. Welcome, Terry.
Thanks. Great to be here, and happy to talk to you personally and also your audience today. So thanks for having me.
Great. So you've scaled brands as an operator, executive, and now as an investor. How are the decisions that you made different from being your money versus somebody else's money versus having other people that will invest with you?
Yeah, that's interesting, right? I always treat the money like it's my own because many times I'm not investing or putting money into something by myself or alone. I'm usually partnering up either with some capital partner, in this case with the Franvest company, out of Edmonton, Canada, actually is where they're based out of. Or in other deals, private equity. I'll build something up, and then a private equity group will come in and they'll invest and buy a portion of the company. It could be a minority interest, could be a majority interest. But again, just when you say, how do I look at the business in terms of whether or not the last 2 years I've exited Orangetheory Fitness, and I've been looking at businesses to invest in. And when I look at it, I look at a couple things. Number one is I look at what the product is. Number two, I typically ask myself, what problem does that solve?
Right.
And I'm going to give Orangetheory Fitness for those people who have heard of that. Maybe people haven't heard of it. It's a small studio concept, about 3,500 square feet, 1 hour workout, half cardio, half strength. Everybody wears a heart rate monitor. Halfway through the workout, you switch. Cardio goes to strength, strength goes to cardio, total body workout. And it's a full body workout, and we work on the metabolic rate. You wear a heart rate monitor, and we know that if we can get your heart to a certain level, you'll burn more calories during the workout and post workout than you would if you're not paying attention to that. A lot of people say, well, Terry, you're helping people get fit, you're helping people get in shape, or you're helping people lose weight. That's true, but that's not the problem we solve. The problem we solve in Orangetheory is an economic problem. So if you hired a personal trainer yourself, Gary, and you said, I want to hire a trainer, it's probably going to cost you what, $50 to $100 for the 1 hour. If you did 2 sessions a week, that's somewhere between, in a month, you're going to be paying $400 to $800 for that trainer to work with you. The economic problem we solve is doing what we call affordable group personal training. So you're doing the training in a group. Therefore, it's not $50 or $100. It's really $14 or $16 for the 1 hour versus the $50 or the $100. And so because of that, people are spending $139, $159, depending on the type of membership, as opposed to $400 or $500 or $600 more. I look at what problem does it solve. If you're listening to the podcast and you're trying to figure out getting involved or even how to define your own business, right? You got to give yourself that 1 minute elevator pitch. But the way to do that is, what problem are you solving? When you start speaking to the problem, people start listening. And the third thing is, number one, what's the product? What problem does it solve? And then I look at the business, the unit economics, the business model. A lot of people get involved in the business because they're super passionate and they love it, or they grew, they learned how to do it from family, from wherever, friend or family, or they just love it, what they're doing, but they haven't really looked at the business model. And the business model is, what's the top line revenue, and what are the economics? What's the profitability? Is it, in the food and beverage business, if you can get 15, 17% margin in the food and beverage business, pretty damn good.
Right.
20, 25, and some other service-based businesses, and anytime you're 30% or above, it's a good thing. So, and is it duplicatable? Can you duplicate this time after time?
Right. So, let's go back to when you were in fitness and then decided to start up with Orangetheory. can you kind of give us a little bit of that background and what was it that made you want to start Orange Theory, and then kind of how did you develop it, and I'm going to say the life of it here.
Yeah, so what happened was is even before Orange Theory, I was a long time big, they call it big box fitness guy. So up in New York City, I started the World Trade Center, executive fitness, right between the towers in the mid 80s. Then I was one of the guys that got Crunch off the ground in the 90s and sold that, built that and sold it to Bally's Total Fitness. I went to Florida and helped the guy grow his company. And growing the company, when you think about that, when I say grew the company, I participated, meaning there were other board of directors and there were presidents and CEOs, and I was the sales and marketing guy, right? I went from fitness guy into sales and marketing. That's a separate story, but that's really how my path went into executive positions in sales and marketing. But because I was good at it, people wanted me to join because you got to focus on sales and marketing if you want to grow your business, right? A
Right.
lot of people think if I build it, they will come. That's not true. You
Right.
really have to understand how to attract people to the door, and you have to understand once they get to the door, how do you convince and persuade them now's the time to make a transaction or to buy or purchase the product or service that you're delivering. Any case, I helped Florida. And then what happened was I started my own. I said, I'm going to go out on my own. And I started my own consulting business. And so a lot of people, health club chains around the world wanted to hire me to help them with branding, marketing, and sales. Our sales are down. We need somebody to help us. At the same time, I heard about this woman in Davie, Florida, named Ellen Latham. She had she had a space in a building called Ellen's, and she had Pilates, spinning, and she had just started something called Ellen's Ultimate Workout. That we took that ultimate workout and moved it into another space. I did the workout. I said, Ellen, you and I should talk about this. She says, I'm working with a couple guys from Massage Envy. I said, you got to let me meet them. I met them, and they hired me initially to do the sales and marketing for this new brand. Well, 2 months later, they said, would you be interested in being a partner? And I said, I would. And so, I was in on it on ground floor, and I started with those guys in 2009. We opened our first store in 2010. Uh, but the truth of the matter, we didn't know it was going to work, Gary. We said if we could get 50 of these things open, we'd be pretty excited about it. Today we have over 1,500 in 23 countries, translated in 5 different languages. It was really timing, was really because in that time, boutique fitness was just really CrossFit and some yoga and Pilates studios. There wasn't all of the F45s and all of the boutique businesses that you see out there, and there's a ton of them. And as a matter of fact, I'll just tell you and to your audience, if you believe in something and again, it doesn't always work the way necessarily it did for me, but I would tell you to always follow your dreams and don't give up on your dreams because for me, I sat in a room and I presented a deck to a group of CEOs from around the world. And I told them what we were going to do with this concept called Orangetheory Fitness. And they said, Terry, don't do it. Every single one of them said, don't do it. It'll never work. You're going to fail. We don't see how it's going to make money. And whatever you do, don't put your own money into it. But what I had seen is this small concept really taking off I was out in San Diego and I said, you know what? I'm going to give it a shot. And if it works, we can do the second one and then the third one. And we never thought it was going to get as big as it was. We just said, let's make that one really work. And this is again another message. I have this phrase called nail it before you scale it. Don't start getting so excited about what you're doing that you go out there and open up 3, 4, 5, 8, 6
Right.
locations,
Right.
but your you're losing money at the first 2 or 3 that you open. What are you
Mhm.
doing? Figure it out, get the right people, and get the right processes that you can duplicate it. But nail it before you scale it. I got into Orange Theory. I opened up a bunch of them, sold some of them, made some money, moved to Austin, opened up more, did a private equity deal, and a phenomenal private equity deal. COVID hurt us when COVID happened to everybody, right? It was a service-based businesses. They closed a lot of the clubs around the country. We
Right.
were all part of that. But yeah, again, a lot of nuggets in there of what I just said in terms of your question. But sorry, I went on a little longer than maybe what you
It's,
wanted.
that's fine. I mean, I think that gives everybody kind of a really a good background of what you've done. So you've done that, but now since then you've also worked with other businesses to help them, grow their business. and being executive for some of them and so forth. In going through this process, give us give us some of the common mistakes that you have seen business owners making, and how did you help them overcome some of these?
I think one of the, listen, again, nailing it before you scale it, I think is big. Everybody's
Yep.
got big dreams. The other thing is, expanding too fast, right? Too quickly. So that's the nail it before you scale it concept. I think a lot of times what people do initially is in building businesses, they don't really spend the money. They perceive themselves as being maybe really good in their product or service, and they've been successful, but as they grow, they expect that that's going to happen again, but they don't have documented systems and they don't spend the money in marketing
Hmm.
because in their current business, a lot of people know them. So they're probably getting a lot of word of mouth or referral based business. So
Right.
small businesses aren't spending the money. But we know this in business. We know that you need to be spending somewhere between 7 and 9% of your gross revenue in marketing. If you say, well, I don't have it, then I would say you're undercapitalized. And there's another thing that people do. You typically think it's
Yes.
going to work from day one. You build a business, you open the doors, and you go, where's all the customers? And they're not there. So I would come up with a plan, and this is a secret to my success. It's happened in the dog stop business. It's happening. It happened in the health club business, but people would seek me out and to teach them how to generate business and capture. Remember that word, that's an important word, capture names and contacts and emails
Right.
prior to the business opening so that you had a database or a reservoir when the business did open that you could start following up with and calling and excite. I call it excite and invite. Get excited about your product and you're all juiced
Right.
up and you invite people, right? People want to be around energetic people. You know that. So excite and invite and spend the money in marketing. Get a good location, but don't just think that the location is everything. Get some eyeballs on your product with flags and
Yep.
banners
Yep.
and all those pieces. Those are a couple things I think. This undercapitalization is probably one of the biggest.
Yeah.
Not really understanding the business side of the business.
So one of the things that you said there was, people don't document their processes. And, I just look at if you're going to franchise or you're going to open up a second location or anything else, even if you're not, even if you're just going to have the one location, if you're not documenting your process, we all have employee turnover. So if you don't have those processes documented, how are you going to bring that next person in? And I find that, my own business, but then also with my clients of looking at that. Um, the documenting processes. Earlier, you talked about, board of directors. And I think many times business owners, because I constantly preach to everybody, have your team of professionals. Call it your team of professionals, call it your personal advisory board. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I talk about that. I have a podcast as well called Tuesday with Terry, but I talk about that, about having your own personal advisory board and what are those, just like the business has a board and has an advisory board that give the direction to the CEO, and then the CEO typically will execute with his direct reports. I'm talking about for you and your life. I'm talking about for you and your personal business. It doesn't matter what size. I have a personal advisory board today here, just so you know. And typically, to really work for me, I think two of those people, one should be just a great accountant, somebody that you can really believe is giving you the accurate information. It's on time. They understand forecasting and budgeting. They can understand and give you benchmark data, maybe even around the industry if you're not really as familiar, but they can really help you get that data. They can also show you where maybe you're overspending and underspending compared to other businesses that they're dealing with. But I think you got to have that. I think you got to have a good attorney. I talk about a funny story is I talk about the $150 mistake that cost me $5 million. And what happened is I didn't have the money starting out in business to really find a good attorney. So I found a friend attorney that was $150 an hour, and I told them to put an operating agreement together. When I started, I didn't have all the money, right? So I had to go out and get the money. And so when I got the money, they put in more money than I did, and they wanted controlling interest. And at that time, I didn't really care. I was just interested in
Right.
getting going. I wanted to be my own, I wanted to be my own business. Anyway, they ended up with majority interest 60 and I had 40. And then as time went on, they got upset about a few things. They weren't happy with a few things. And next thing I know, they took over unilateral control and they kicked me out as the operator. And I like, what just happened? I hired the biggest firm I could find in Tampa Bay, called Schutz and Bowen, give them a plug. But Schutz and Bowen, and they said, "Who wrote this for you?" And this operating agreement. And I said, "A friend of mine, $150 an hour." They said, "You should have come to us because there's so much in here we could have protected you from." And again, my counsel on that is a good attorney will give you good advice. An
Right.
attorney that's your friend or your next door neighbor and doesn't understand corporate law and doesn't understand operating agreements or doesn't understand mergers and acquisitions is not, if they're a divorce attorney or a family law attorney, they're not your guy. I'm just telling you, they're
Yeah.
not your guy, even though they're your friend, but they're not going to give you the good advice. So good accountant, good attorney, three and four. One that you definitely want is a mentor for the business that has been down this road of scaling businesses in the past. Find that person. And then, other than that, I would just recommend, and again, I think business people that have been in business, invested in business, understand how to invest, understand, and then somebody maybe that's a good business, but a good people person, understands how to look and recruit and attract top talent. And I can't tell you how important it is the people that you get into business with are going to make you or break you. You can have great people and poor processes, and you won't be as successful. Or you can have poor people, not talented people, and really good systems going forward, and your personal advisory board.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I
Did I
think
freeze up there a little bit? I don't know.
yeah. I mean, I think that's important. Having those people that are holding you accountable, to me is extremely important because that's going to help you, in my opinion, that's going to help you grow, by doing that because it's one of those things, again, you're a fitness guy. It's like it's easy to stay on the couch and not get up and go do that workout. It's the people that are going to get you up to go do that workout that you want to have, as part of your team for sure. Um,
But in the absence of information, Gary, what happens is without that advisory board, you also don't have the confidence. I found myself lacking the confidence. And so when you talk about accountability, you're absolutely right. But they also give you the confidence to go make a decision and do something because you're unsure. And when you don't have the information, in the absence of information, you kind of paralyze a little, you freeze up a little bit, you know?
right.
So
Yeah, definitely. So, you said earlier you have a podcast, Tuesdays with Terry. Tell us about your podcast.
the podcast started 25 years ago. This is before podcasts became popular. They started 25 years ago when I was with a company that was growing, and we didn't have Zoom or Teams or podcasts. So we all had this call-in number, and I would have multiple people from Tampa and Orlando and Jacksonville and Charlotte call into this number, and so I could get some consistency. Instead of just going, is there a call today? Is the call? When's the call? I just did it every Tuesday. And I read the book Tuesday with Maury. And I go,
Right.
hey, I'm just going to do it every Tuesday with Terry. And that's what it was. And then that led into Zoom calls and team calls. And over the last couple of years, I started my own podcast. They're all short. They're all 12, 15 minutes. It's just me talking about four things. I'm talking about uh, self-improvement. I talk about sales and marketing. I talk about how to scale your business. And I talk about leadership, a lot of people development, how to be a better leader, how to be a better communicator, better leader for your group. So yeah,
Right. Right.
TuesdayWithTerry.com, by the way, if you want to.
Great. Great. Appreciate that. So, Terry, we covered over, a bunch of stuff here real quick. What questions have I not asked you you wish I had?
I think, when most people that you talk to, or I think that listen to your podcast, Gary, are either growing, developing, or scaling their businesses or looking to get into business. I would encourage people to remember that whether you're the president or the CEO of your business, what's most important, I think, for people to remember is you're the president of your own life. You get to decide what you're going to do, when you're going to do it, and if you want to do it or you don't want to do it. And that's why that advisory board is really important. And the other piece is perspective. How do you get perspective? You're not always at the top of the mountain and you're not always in the bottom, but I can tell you what you focus on. If you're thinking about, the problems and all the terrible things that are happening and the people that have done this and the businesses or the customers, then what ends up happening is you think things are going bad, right? You've heard this: when things are bad, they get worse. But if you focus on some of the positives, think about things in your life, and I don't mean just in business, but that are going well. If your family's doing well and your finances are not doing well, but your relationship is good, your health is good, whatever it is, find something, find two or three things that are going well and figure out how to keep them going well. And what happens, it gives you perspective. Not everything in your business is going bad. You just have to do a better job at looking for it and talking about it. Talk about the good things. When things are good,
Right.
they get better. Focus on the
Right.
good stuff.
Right, definitely. So Terry, if people like what they hear, you've told us where to find your podcast, but if they want to reach out and talk to you, how can they reach you? Where can they find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn. I think is really easy to find me. Go to LinkedIn, Terry Blachek. You can find all of my podcasts on Anchor, Apple, Spotify, all the social media places as well. Tuesday with Terry. But thank
Great.
you, Gary. Thanks for having me. Thanks for spending
Oh
the
yeah,
time and asking me those questions. And I appreciate it. I'm very grateful. Thank you.
great, great. We're glad you were able to get on with us today, and definitely appreciate your time. So
Thank
this week,
you.
yep. So this week our guest was Terry Blachek, and he is the managing director at Franvest Capital Partners. And I'll see you guys next week.